I just found an MCP server that makes your coding assistant 100 times effective, faster, and cheaper. Allow me to introduce Context 7, a powerful documentation retrieval tool developed by Upstach, designed to boost the reliability of an AI coding assistant, especially within MCPs. For those who are unfamiliar with MCP, it stands for Model Context Protocol developed by Anthropic. It's an open standard that connects AI assistants to real-world data sources like dev environments, content repositories, and business tools. Think of it as a plugin that supercharges your AI by giving it access to live relevant information. Now that you know what an MCP is, you might be wondering, what's wrong with your current AI coding workflow? Well, the problem is, most AI coders, even powerful ones like Claude or Gemini 2.5 Pro, these models are trained and are actually outdated or incomplete with the data that is continuously being updated on a regular basis. They often lack awareness of the latest libraries, frameworks, or even updated CDN paths. For example, Claude and Gemini currently don't have knowledge of the latest ShadCN UI packages, which was just updated this past week. That's where Context 7 comes in. Context 7, as an MCP server, is going to be able to index and structure documentations from over 3,570 libraries, giving your AI assistant real-time access to accurate, up-to-date technical references, delivered through token-efficient vector-based search. Like I mentioned, with Context 7, it helps you index docs for thousands of libraries, configurable token limit for more efficient context usage. You have MCP servers, which are compatible for seamless integration into tools like Cline. And you have two core tools. You have the Resolve Library ID, which maps search queries to the exact library identifier. And then you also have the next core tool, which is the Get Library Docs, which retrieves precise documentation for coding references. You also have Markdown file tracking to avoid repeated API calls, which is going to make it cost efficient whenever you're generating with this MCP. You know when work feels like an endless loop? With meetings, writing, organizing, it never ends. And sometimes there's just no time to actually think, let alone do great work. That's why I wanted to share this amazing guide from HubSpot called Revolutionize Your Work with Claude AI. It shows you how to set up Claude like your personal assistant, summarizing meetings, managing your calendar, and tracking follow-ups so you're not always catching up. There's also a section on streamlining content creation, whether it's for social, email, or blog. Super helpful for staying on brand and consistent. And if you dread digging into data, it breaks down analytics into insights you can actually use. My favorite part, the executive assistant setup. Offloading small admin tasks has freed up so much time for me. So if you're ready to work smarter, grab the free download link in the description below. This is a huge thanks to HubSpot for sponsoring this and making something genuinely useful. This is why we're going to combine Context 7 as an MCP with Cline, because we can use the modern interface for the MCP based AI coder that supports these modular plugins like enhancements by integrating Context 7 that will give your AI coding assistant real-time access to relevant documentations for libraries even if they're not in your large language model's training data, like Next.js 15, OpenAI Agent SDK, and much further with other libraries. Now, you also have it so that with the Cline combined with this MCP, it's going to ensure better code generation by minimizing hallucination and fixing incorrect CDN paths or outdated syntaxes. It also has automation rules, which you can set default token limits, caching resolved IDs. The integration becomes more efficient and scalable, so you're going to save a lot more in terms of the token expenditure. So now let's get started and showcase how you can set this up. There's actually two ways. You can easily fetch up-to-date documentations for LLMs and AI code editors through their website, which is something that I'll leave a link to in the description below. I don't recommend doing this, but you can search the library, whether that's ShadCN, and then you can click on that package over here. But in this case, let's go ahead over to a Next.js package. Now, if I'm to click on this one, you'll see the options to set a token limit. This is something that will set how much context you want, as well as you having a search query where you can go ahead and have it perform RAG style search from the documentation that you had provided. Based off this query, it will retrieve the most relevant documentation and then it will send it back. Now, the MCP server behind this powers the functionality. For example, if I search something like middleware, I do get relevant information that will be sent back to me. But if I lower the token limit to something like 6,900, it is going to then shorten the response for me. And then I can then go ahead and copy this tighter context for a faster response into the large language model. In essence, Context 7's job is to fetch documentation, and it does pretty well in terms of finding the latest docs for these different packages. Now, this process is definitely a bit more difficult to set up if you're a beginner, and it does take a lot of time to search through different packages and finding the relevant concepts you want the AI to use, which is why setting an MCP is way easier with a tool like Cline. You've probably heard of Cline, but for those who haven't, it's an autonomous coding agent directly within your IDE, capable of creating, editing files, executing commands, using the browser, and so much more, fully autonomously or with your permission each step of the way. Now, this is something that you can install completely for free as it's open source, as well as this MCP server. So this whole process is fully free, and it's gonna 100x your productivity with your AI coding assistant. Now, to get started, you can go ahead and install the Cline extension within your IDE. I recommend using Visual Studio Code, but you can use Cursor or many of the other IDEs that are out there. You can install it for whatever operating system you have. Then go ahead to the marketplace, click on Open and install within Visual Studio Code. And once you have done that, it will then open up VS Code, and then you can go ahead and install it. Now, make sure you go and install the latest version, restart the extension, and then on the left-hand panel, you should then readily access it. So you can click on the Cline icon, and then you can go first, configure the API provider. So you can actually choose a free provider. So if you actually select VS Code LM API, you can get access to these state-of-the-art models completely for free. There's a rate limit to it, so just keep that in mind. But this is a free API that you can use. I recommend using the Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and then you can click on Save. Now that you have your API and model provider set, you want to head over to the marketplace, the MCP marketplace, and search for Context 7. Now, what you want to do is simply click on Install, and Cline will fully autonomously set up this MCP server for you. So you don't even need to do anything. Just let it autonomously set up all of the configurations it needs to set for this MCP to be functional. After it has finished installing, you will then be able to access it and toggle it on within the managed MCP servers. And then now you can reference live documentations, and you're going to be able to get live up-to-date data from various sorts of libraries. Now, one thing I highly recommend that you do is Cline rules. This is where I have it so that it is going to follow these rules to ensure the system queries Context 7 only when it's needed, which is going to save tokens and unnecessary API calls. You can customize the max tokens it uses, so this way it will dynamically base it based off the prompt size or the actual model token limit. You can also have it so that it is gonna not go over the token limit that you set, so you can specify that within the rules, and then you can go ahead and fetch the latest content on various libraries and get that context that you would want a large language model to have. And this way, the Context 7 MCP is going to retrieve the latest information for any sort of library that you request it for. Now you can go ahead and use Cline with Context 7. For example, this is a prompt that was sent in to request Cline to show you how to set up a basic mutation using React Query v5, and request it to also use Context 7 MCP. And it will take on this action to use up-to-date data on this library to set up the overall library within Cline. Whereas if you were to request a new model, it wouldn't be able to do this because it doesn't have the knowledge or the information due to the knowledge cutoff that is set for training of these different models, which is why it wouldn't be able to solve this query. But with Context 7, it's able to do this because it connects the AI with live up-to-date data, and this is why it was able to set up this documentation for you. Overall, Context 7 is going to supercharge your AI coding assistant, and it's going to eliminate one of the biggest limitations, which is outdated or missing documentation. So this is something that I highly recommend that you take a look at with the link in the description below. This is completely free, and you can easily get this started right away. But with that thought, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Follow me on the second channel. Make sure you join the newsletter as well as the Discord. Follow me on Twitter. And lastly, make sure you guys subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this video, and please take a look at our previous videos because there's a lot of content that you will truly benefit from. But with that thought, guys, have an amazing day, spread positivity, and I'll see you guys really soon. Peace out, fellas.